This is a short demonstration of the IONET Change Manager database. The function of this database is to sit on a monitoring server and monitor remote servers. You do that via monitoring documents, each one of which controls which servers you go and monitor, whether that's domains or individual servers and groups, and what have you. The polling schedule tab describes how you go about monitoring those servers, how often you do it, any downtime they have, what directory file names they use, so all of the things that are required to actually go out and monitor servers. The activity logging tab lets you define what you want to go and monitor. So here this could be elements in the directory like server documents and program documents and so on, notes any files, same time any, use of full access administration, registry keys, individual groups, individual ACLs and database designs, entries appearing in the log.nsf for those servers, directory document deletions and modifications, and user registrations and user sessions. So there's a few different things you can monitor. The change requests tab lets you control whether or not change control is in use for the monitor, and if so, what conditions apply to it. So for example, whether or not emergency changes are allowed if an approver is not available. It also lets you configure what elements apply to change control or must use change control and which ones don't. The Document Expiry and Archiving tab just lets you control how data is kept in this database, how many archives you have, how you rotate the archives, and just lets you keep a handle on the documents that you create. The Health Check tab makes sure that the environment is set up okay for monitoring, and the History tab just lets you keep a record of what changes. So basically the monitoring document is there to contain all of the information that this needs to go out and monitor different servers according to your schedule and get back the information you want. So the server reports view, this is what shows you what your actual environment looks like right now. So this is the documents in the directory, it's the notes any files, it's the same time any files, it's the ACLs and so on. The activity view lets you show you what's going on and what's actually changing. So here for example we've seen a string appear in a log.nsf which we were looking for. We've seen a line in a notes any file change, so it shows you what it went from and to. We've seen an ACL change here. We've seen a program document change, which was an emergency change. In other words, change control was bypassed. It's command line field change from nothing to X10 by me on this date. So this lets you see what actually changed by who and when. In the same vein, this server document formula timeout field is marked as unauthorized because it should have gone through change control, but the change was made via an agent in the background, so therefore it's seen as being an unauthorized change. You still see what changed by who and when. You can also look at things like full access administration events and what happened while the full access administration was in use and that sort of thing. You can look at design changes, and for example you can look at changes that apply to a change control. So this social edition field on the configuration document changed from that to that. There was a change request involved, so if we look at the change request we can see the changes that were required. Further down we can see the approval. It was approved then. We can see when it was implemented, and so you can schedule things for implementation. When it was reverted, also you can schedule reversion, and you can also set reminders to make sure things are actually reverted or not, which is useful for things like SMTP debug information and any files. You can make sure that is removed after a certain period of time. So the change control lets you schedule changes, remove them at a certain time and date, and controls every aspect of making that change. So the activity reports show you what occurred and when, and these are reported to administrators as they occur. So if I was to go to the directory now and cut out a connection document, paste it back in again, we'll see that that's been recorded in the Change Manager. So it's seen that I removed it, and then 2 seconds later it's seen that I added it back in again. So that will be immediately notified to an administrator who's set up to receive those alerts, and they can then investigate and make sure everything's as it should be. The other aspect of that is user reporting, and I'll show you that in a second. Further down in this in the monitoring views, we've got certification events we're monitoring, user sessions, user databases, database sessions I should say, and change requests. So these are the change requests which have been taken place, whether they've reverted or not. The functions you can set up are reporting functions. So this is where a user sets up a scheduled report to make sure they're told of things that they're interested in. These are not necessarily administrators, they could be IT managers or anyone with an interest in what's going on, and they can define what they want to see or what they want to be told about on what servers and how often they want to be told about it. So they can set up numerous different reports, they can receive email, they can include files for export in a certain format, and once they've saved this, they'll be notified of the changes as they take place. So it's a good way to give visibility to users who would not normally see what's going on, change control managers and that sort of thing. Benchmarking is a way for administrators to set up a benchmark and then compare against it. So you could, for example, set up a server configuration document as the benchmark for mail servers and compare your servers against that on a scheduled basis and be told when things vary from the benchmark. You can also do the same thing with any files, same time any files. You can compare any files, so here we're comparing the any file from two different servers, and we can see which lines are different, which lines are on one server but not the other, and so forth. So this is a way of directly comparing any files to make sure that all your any files are generally the same. In a similar vein, you can validate your hub-spoke directory. So in a replicated environment, you can make sure that the spokes have an exact copy of the hub. This function will look for documents, unique IDs being different, fields missing, field values being different, to make sure that the changes are not being made on spokes and not replicating up to hubs. In other words, that the environment is uniform across all of the servers. Snapshots are a way of taking just that, a snapshot of your environment every day, every week, every month, whatever it is, so that you can always look back and see what your environment looked like at a certain point in time. The further down in the administration section, you've got some ways to change the workflow for approvals, change the approvals themselves. You can look at what reports are being generated for users. So you can, this is the user also has emailed this, but it's stored in the database so administrators can look at it, see what's being reported. The user can, each one of these links to the actual change report, so they can go back in and look at the change as it takes place, look at the details of the change. The errors view simply shows you what errors are taking place, and the log view shows you what logs are taking place, what actions are taking place, how the polls are going, and that sort of thing. So the function of this database really is to collect information from your environment depending what you want to see, report on it to certain users, enforce change control for certain things, maybe administration groups and server documents and so forth, and just manage the environment to make sure that everything's as it should be. Now the users can also look at the environment via browser, so this again could be non-administration users, it could be managers, it could be someone in a different company altogether, and they set up a report to, in the same way as they did in the notes client, to say tell me about changes affecting these type of things on these servers every so often, send it to me also as an email with a file. So the user can set up these reports, they then receive the reports in the email, and they can go and look at it on the browser as well. They can look at each one, they can see the detail, what field changed, by who and by when. They can then scroll through the rest of the document and see what the environment looks like for each type of thing that they've been told, requested to be notified about. So this is a web-based report, you can keep them for as long as you want. The end user can, of course, they get the file and either in the email or they can download it from the web report, and it's just a way for them to look at what's going on and have a handle of what's going on without needing to be an administrator. So that's a brief description of how the Change Manager works, the functions it has. There's more to it, of course, but these are the main functions.